Okay, welcome everyone. We are here live with Brad King, and I see there's already a question in the chat box. Yes, there will be a replay, and you'll get it sent out automatically tomorrow. And he will also provide us with the PDF of his presentation, so I will send that to you as well. So to begin with, I'd like to introduce Brad King. He is a nutritional researcher and award-winning product formulator. He holds a master's in nutritional science and is certified as a Master's of Fitness Science from the International Sports Science Association. He teaches the Master Your Metabolism class to fourth-year graduating students at Boucher Institute of Naturopathic Medicine and is a highly sought after authority on nutrition, obesity, longevity, and one's health. He believes it's not that you age, it's how you choose to age that matters. And he is the author of 11 books, including bestsellers Fat Wars and the award-winning Beer Belly Blues. His latest is called Dirty Diet. So we are very pleased to welcome Brad King.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome everyone. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate having the opportunity to share some of the research that I've been involved with over the last 20 years. We're going to get started in a couple of seconds here, and I just wanted right off the bat, for any of you inquisitive people, and I think all of you are, as you can see, there's some information here where you can get in touch with me. You can find out a little more information about things that I'm involved with and things that I do for the industry. You can find me on Twitter at The King of Health. You can find me on Facebook at Brad King Health and on the website transforminghealth.com. I would also definitely advise you to go into Dirty Diets. And Brad King Health is also a Dirty Diets Facebook page. That's where I interact with the majority of other health professionals and people that are just looking for interaction and the right kind of information. So please feel free to visit me where I do hang out the most of the time, which is on Facebook. And once again, that's Brad King Health on Facebook. We have a great deal of information that I'm going to be sharing with you today, and I'm just you got to bear with me because this is quite new to me, this entire format, and I'm just trying to advance the slides here, and it's not working as quickly as I would like it to. What I'm going to be talking to you about this evening is beating the beer belly blues, and I'll explain to you what the beer belly blues is in a couple of minutes here, but we are really focusing on men's health today. I've written 2 books on men's health. It's a subject that is near and dear to my heart, not just because I'm a man, but because I actually lost my father to prostate cancer when I was quite young. And I've always wanted to write a book and do research on men's health because I do feel that a lot of men really aren't getting the proper information that's available to them. So I'm going to give you information today you may not have heard before. It may be conflicting with some of the other things that you have heard. There's a great deal of information and research behind what I am going to tell you. So I would advise you that if you do have any questions, please hold them to the end, and I'll do my best to answer them. What I want to start off with is what the basis of my research is really about, and that is the body's ability to regenerate, turn over, replace, replenish cells at an astonishing rate. This is what it really is the key to abundant health. And everything that I've ever been involved with happens to be about the body's ability to become just a little more anabolic. We go through 2 phases of metabolism from the time we're born. We go through what's called the rebuild phase, which is anabolic metabolism, and we go through the breakdown state of affairs, which is called catabolic metabolism. I do a lot of research into aging, and when I talk about aging, I never talk about chronological age. I talk about biological age. How old are we on the most fundamental level of all, where it counts most, and that's really the cellular level. In other words, you do not age chronologically speaking. It doesn't matter how many years we've moved away from the womb. What matters is what we're doing to impact that cellular aging on a moment-by-moment basis. Geneticists call this pluripotential, where our genes are in a constantly changing environment because of 3 primary factors. One would be our dietary cues. What do we decide to put into our mouths every time we decide to put something into our mouths. Number two would be our lifestyle factors. Are we lazy people? Are we proactive people? Do we sleep in? Do we get up a little early and work out? Do we plop ourselves in front of a television set at night to try to relax and not really realize the importance of our circadian rhythms and how fake light can affect the biology of the body and all of those things? And we also determine our metabolism and our genes based on our environment. And when I talk about our environment, I'm talking about not just where we choose to live geographically, but what do we choose to allow into our lives. And when we talk about regeneration, we have to understand that the human body has an incredible capacity to turn over cells. As a matter of fact, when we're young on a biological level, we do this at such an astonishing rate that it's actually been shown that we turn over almost 200 million cells every minute of every day. So think about that for a second. That's almost 300 billion cells in a 24-hour period that are renewed, replenished, and replaced. And the great deal of that regeneration comes from those three factors. And one of the factors that we can absolutely impact today, and why all of you are a part of what you're doing here, is nutrition. Nutrition is absolutely important for sending the proper messages. When I write books on metabolism, when I teach courses on metabolism, I talk about metabolism not in the general sense of the word of what so many people are led to believe by how many calories we can process over a 24-hour period. I talk about metabolism in the sense that every single one of our 100 trillion cells, other than our red blood cells, has its own metabolism. And we're only as strong as our weakest cells, or those cell structures' ability to be able to process energy in the form of something we call ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. By the way, when we talk about regeneration, where there was a book that I wrote a few years ago with a NASA neuroscientist by the name of Dr. Michael Schmidt. And in that book, we spoke about a mathematical experiment that took place about 10 years ago, where they found out that the average person produces about 150 pounds of ATP per 24-hour period. Now, obviously, I don't know of any of you that wake up in the morning and say, geez, I wonder how much ATP I'm going to produce. But the point is, we produce so much of this ATP, and it's a major factor behind how we experience aging and how we experience degeneration. The reason I'm sharing this information with you today is everything I talk about, whether it's men's health, which just happens to be the subject today, or whether it's women's health or any other category, I'm really talking about that ability to be able to do whatever we do as men or women that much better, because we have a much more effective metabolism right at that cellular rate. And so many people have always wondered, what is this about the aging cycle? Like, we have so many theories of aging. We have things like the neuroendocrine theory of aging, and we have the free radical theory of aging, and the list just goes on and on. But the point is, aging itself can really be explained very simplistically by saying that when we break down a little faster than the body's able to keep up with the breakdown state of affairs, in other words, when we're no longer able to regenerate just that much more effectively than we're degenerating, that's what we call premature aging, and that's what's going to impact all of these men that we're going to be talking about today. So before we get there, we've got to talk about the nutrients, which are the nuts and bolts of this regeneration cycle. When I talk about nutrients, researchers speak about this in the sense that we need more or less 40 nutrients in order to allow the human body to thrive on a daily basis. So when we look at this, and this is not an exact science, we look at 15 vitamins, we look at 15 minerals, more or less, because there's a lot of other minerals that we don't really account for, a lot of trace minerals, up to 70 of them. And then we talk about things like 2 essential fatty acids and 8 or 9 amino acids, and more or less that equates to about 40 nutrients that the human body needs to thrive, not just to get from point A to point B, but obviously to do it in style. I say often in my lectures that a lot of people are existing. We're not really living. We're not experiencing life the way it's meant to be. And in order to do that, we need to put everything in place, and we need all the nuts and bolts, and the nuts and bolts come from the very basics, which are those nutrients. The reason I share this with you is because the majority of the population is deficient in at least one or more of those nutrients. So most people would say, well, okay, so if we need 40 nutrients and we're deficient in 1 or 2, big deal. Then we still have 39 or 38 nutrients. I'm sure we can, still make up the deficit. But the fact remains that research now has a new theory for this problem, which is called the triage theory of aging. And the triage theory of aging is postulated by researchers from the University of California at Berkeley, Dr. Bruce Ames and his colleagues. And what that research is showing is that just as triage is a term that's borrowed from critical care, meaning that if there was ever an accident or a catastrophe that took place and there weren't enough medical personnel to take care of the wounded individuals, they would have to quickly prioritize who they would have to help. So in other words, if there was someone that had a cut on their arm and then somebody that was having a heart attack, obviously they would have to prioritize to save the person that was dying rather than a person that was just bleeding. And this is how it is in the human body. So what Dr. Bruce Ames says is that if you're even modestly deficient in one of the essential micronutrients, your body has to do very much the same thing as this triage theory, which is ration in terms of priority. And what that means is that under that scenario, the body will always direct nutrients towards short-term health and reproductive capability, and always away from regulation and repair of cellular DNA and the proteins that are responsible for keeping us young over an extended period of time. So this is one of the primary theories right now in why so many people within North America are experiencing premature aging. It's because when we are deficient in one or more of these nutrients, the body is not interested in keeping you young over an extended period of time. It's only interested in keeping you alive so that you can do what you need to do to see another day. And this is what the majority of the problem is. So one of the products that I talk about, and I'm not going to have time to explain today, is my Ultimate Multi. And I talk about a multivitamin in terms of being as close to nature as possible, because this is really the basics. When you say as close to nature as possible, what does that really mean? Well, when you take something like a mineral, for all intents and purposes, is inorganic in nature. Non-carbon containing, basically we're talking about something that is, the ions are attractive of one another. So they make really, really hard things like rocks and seashells and sidewalks, but we're not meant to obviously take a rock and bite into it and then, obviously get our minerals that way or our calcium that way. However, when a plant system uses natural organic acids like humic and fulvic acid and transports those same rocks into its cellular structure, those minerals now become recognized by the human body. Very safe, very recognized, very easily incorporated and distributed through the cells of the body. And this is what we need to look at when we look at nutrients from nature. We need to look at as close to their natural composition as possible. When we talk about minerals, we're talking about plant-based minerals as often as possible. When we talk about vitamins, we need to look at vitamins in terms of how they're recognized by the human body in their most natural form. When I put a vitamin A, for instance, in my multi, I don't put a synthetic form of beta-carotene like so many companies unfortunately do. I put something called D-selena, which is an algae that has many hundreds of carotenoids and just happens to have very high levels of beta-carotene. When I put a form of chromium, I put something called chromium 454, which happens to be a plant-based chromium, which is safe, but it also has been shown to lower blood glucose by about 33%. When I put B vitamins into a formula, because every B vitamin that's available in the market is synthetic. It takes a lot of work for the body to be able to utilize those B vitamins unless they're phosphorylated and activated. And this is exactly what this multi has, and this is exactly what people should be looking for when they are covering the basics of their nutritional protocol. So we're going to talk about male menopause right now. I just wanted to give you just a little bit of that background of just the basics of where I would start with nutrition. But let's talk about this syndrome that's called male menopause, and this is kind of what it looks like. See, when we're young as men, what ends up happening is we're supposed to be lean naturally. Part of the reason for that is because, you know, after we go through puberty, we produce a great deal of testosterone. We're able to hold on to this manly hormones called testosterone. Now, I say it's a manly hormone just because men produce a lot more of it than women. But the point is, when we do have a lot of this testosterone, we're able to hold on to a great deal of lean body mass, and that lean body mass, to a large extent, controls our rate at which we can control our metabolism. So muscle, for the most part, is really the key metabolic engine of the body, which dictates how many calories we're able to process over a 24-hour period. When we don't have testosterone, we're not able to hold on to the same muscle anymore. And this is what happens when we get a little older. And I'm talking about men in their late 20s, early 30s that start to experience a loss of testosterone to the point of at least 1, sometimes 2% per year, so that by the time that they're 50 or 60, they're lucky to produce maybe 50 or 60% of the testosterone that they produced at the peak of their vitality, and that would be in their early 20s. So what ends up happening is we lose the muscle tissue, we lose our metabolic activity, we gain fat in the place of where that muscle used to be. We tend to gain a lot of fat primarily in the abdominal cavity. And one of the reasons for that is because as we are losing muscle and as we're getting fatter in that abdominal cavity, we're producing more of something called a sex hormone binding globulin, and we're also producing more of something called aromatase. Aromatase is the way both women and men produce estrogen. We take testosterone, we aromatize it into estrogen. And in a man's body, we hold a lot of that aromatase enzyme directly in the subcutaneous area of our fat, right underneath the skin in the belly. So the fatter we become, the slower our metabolism, the more aromatase we start to produce, and the more testosterone we start converting into estrogen. So it becomes, it becomes one of these very, very hard to change scenarios because the body starts working against us. And this is really what male menopause is, or the beginning of male menopause. Now, I call it the beer belly blues. This is a book that I wrote, which became an international bestseller a few years ago. And beer belly blues, the reason I call it this is because men are constantly in denial. We don't want to say we're getting fat, but we'll say things like, hey, we drink beer. That's a manly thing to do. And so I call it the beer belly because men seem to be a little more okay with that than the fat belly or the big belly. And the reason I say blues, and I'm going to show you this in a little more detail, because men that have a great deal of abdominal fat usually suffer from depression. They also obviously have a whole host of other disorders, but it's been shown that these men can suffer from depression and mood disorders to a greater degree by close to 300% over men that have normal levels of testosterone. So that's why I call this the beer belly blues. I since went on to write a book called The Ultimate Male Solution, How to Lose the Belly, Increase Testosterone, and Supercharge Your Sex Life. And what I'm going to be sharing with you today is really what these books talk about and some of what I teach actually at a university level to people who, or clinicians who are interested in learning how to reverse this, because this is a very, very big problem and it's happening in the younger and younger population. So this is just a little humor, but there's some truth in it as well. I pulled this off of the internet. Something terribly wrong is happening because in the 1980s, these are the kind of men that we saw. Of course, we didn't see a lot of these men, but the point is, this is the amount of muscle tissue that, when I started looking into things like bodybuilding, Arnold Schwarzenegger and people like him were my idols. And then in the 90s, these are the kind of guys that we started to see. And then it changed. So it's now becoming almost common to see men in their 30s who have testosterone levels equivalent to that of 60-year-old men. So we're no longer producing optimal levels of testosterone, as I mentioned, but it's not uncommon to say that your grandparents probably, or your grandfather, had higher levels of testosterone than you do as a man. And one of the things we have to understand is there are many reasons for this. So we can say that, okay, maybe we're a little more lazy, maybe we're eating the wrong types of foods, which we are. We're having a lot more sugar in our diet, which is creating a lot of the metabolic complications, which is allowing us to store a lot more abdominal fat, which may be hindering the amount of testosterone. We can talk about environment. We could say that, 50, 60 years ago, we knew of maybe 1 million pounds of synthetic chemicals that were never part of our evolutionary existence, many of those being xenoestrogenic in activity, so very weak, but they act like and they are similar to estrogen, and they accumulate, they bioaccumulate in the body, and because they're estrogenic in nature, they're fat soluble, because let's not forget our sex hormones come from cholesterol, and they lodge themselves inside of our fat tissue. So it's not uncommon for people after the age of 30 to have 166 different kinds of what we call organochlorine molecules in their bloodstream, which is a fancy word for saying pesticides, or once again these xenoestrogens. In this day and age, we have 600 times the amount we had 50 to 60 years ago. So those can absolutely be playing havoc. And then there's the stress response. Whenever we have a very high stress response, we eat up a lot of testosterone. It's not as important as cortisol, and it's produced along the same biochemical pathway as cortisol. So there's all of these things and possibly more, plus drugs. There's many pharmaceuticals that men are on that are further lowering their testosterone, especially the statin medications, which actually block the cholesterol production, which is responsible for making more testosterone. So when we look at andropause, mortality rates are 88% higher in men who have low levels of testosterone compared with men who have even just normal, never normal high, never mind normal high, just normal levels of testosterone. So to put this in perspective and just to understand how important testosterone is, I've put a list here of all of the things that testosterone is so important for, imperative for actually, in a man's body. So take a look at this. We need it for better health, for more energy, for more zest for life. By the way, that's the reason we get up in the morning. Once again, the better moods. Don't forget we have a much higher risk of suffering from clinical depression and other mood disorders. Women, I believe, call this the grumpy old man syndrome. We need it for healthier cardiovascular system. In my book, in both my books, Beer Belly Blues and The Ultimate Male Solution, I talk about how almost every single cardiovascular risk complication factor can be remedied to a great extent by raising testosterone as naturally as possible in the body. Better blood sugar control. As a matter of fact, men who have low levels of testosterone have greater than a 64% risk of suffering from things like type 2 diabetes. We need it for increased bone density, more muscle, reduced body fat. As a matter of fact, if we put testosterone in a culture, in a laboratory setting with a fat cell, what ends up happening is that fat cell reduces the amount of LPL, lipoprotein lipase, and it produces more of something called HSL, which is hormone-sensitive lipase, and it allows more of the fat to break down into fatty acids and become an energy source. If you take testosterone out of that culture, then you start to produce great amounts of LPL again, and you don't produce enough of the fat-releasing enzyme in the body. So it's exceptionally important for a reduction of fat, primarily from the abdominal cavity. I've interviewed some of the world's leading experts in hormone replacement therapy. One of the professors from New York University who specializes only in testosterone replacement therapy for both sexes. And he actually mentioned on my radio show that this is a disease not just of the aging population, because up to 25% of the people that he's treating in this day and age, in 2014 coming into 2015, are kids, are teenagers or people in their early 20s. So there's a very big problem that's occurring. And then we look at things like enhanced libido. We need testosterone in order to initiate desire. By the way, this is also for women because we have receptors for testosterone in the brain, and if we do not have enough testosterone, we can't initiate that feeling of libido for being in the mood for sex because we don't have enough to latch onto those receptors. For women, there's actually been research showing that when women go through menopause, they usually have exceptionally low levels of testosterone. And when they're given testosterone in replacement therapy in a clinical setting, the majority of women, all of a sudden, even if they haven't been remotely interested in any sexual activity for years, all of a sudden their libido starts coming back with a very high percentage. So it's very, very interesting to see that. With reduced erectile dysfunction, this happens in now the majority of men over the age of 40 to one degree or another, the inability to get and or achieve an erection that is strong enough for sexual intercourse. That's really the definition of erectile dysfunction. And part of the reason for that is because we need testosterone to enhance nitric oxide, so blood flow, vasodilation, to increase the arteries and the penile arteries as well, but also to trap the blood in the penile arteries so that a man can keep that erection. And there is a certain percentage of men who, even if they take drugs like Viagra or Cialis, they still don't work in their bodies because they don't have enough testosterone. When these men are given testosterone, the majority of the men that don't respond, and they call them non-responders to those drugs, all of a sudden start to respond to those drugs. So men need free testosterone. It doesn't necessarily matter the overall amount of testosterone in a man's body. What matters is what form is that testosterone found in. Because we have testosterone that's bound to sex hormone binding globulins, which I'm going to show you. There is testosterone that's bound loosely to albumin, the most important marker in your serum. And then there's this free testosterone, which occurs at a very, very small percentage, but it is the most important and most biologically active testosterone in the body. And that testosterone should measure in at what we call 20 to 25. Don't even worry about this. We call it picograms per milliliter, so it doesn't take a lot of that testosterone to exert a biological reaction in the body. The problem is that many doctors are under the belief that free testosterone, even as low as 15, is adequate for a man's body. So that is something that we call pre-castrate levels. Now, let me explain to you how much of a problem this is. So understand, if you got tested and your free testosterone was 15 or lower, it would be pretty much like your testosterone was shut down. You're no longer producing enough testosterone to create any real biological advantage for the body. What happened was there was a longevity institute a few years ago that did a study. These are all living people where they would get their blood samples tested, and these were people that took vitamins and lived otherwise healthy or believed to be healthy lifestyles. So these wouldn't necessarily represent the average man on the street. These would represent men that otherwise would start to or thought they were taking care of themselves. There was close to 8,000 men in these samples, and the ages were from 20 to 70. Now don't forget, these represented rather healthier individuals of men. What ended up happening was they found that 86% of the men had less than the 15 picograms per milliliter of free testosterone that actually placed them at a high risk for virtually every single age-related disease known to mankind. They found that only 9.6% of the men were in what we would call the mid-range of 15 all the way to 22, which meant only 4.2% of men had high optimal free testosterone blood levels. So that means that the majority of the population of men these days probably is suffering from lower than adequate levels of natural, free, or biologically active testosterone. What we need to do is we need to understand that we need to free that testosterone. And here's part of the problem here. Here's a graph showing our ages and showing how when we're younger, there's an equal amount roughly of testosterone and the protein that transports testosterone around the body, sex hormone binding globulin. What happens is as we go through the aging cycle, as you can see, the testosterone levels start to decline, but the sex hormone binding globulin levels that tie up testosterone actually start to increase. So as they increase further and further, that means whatever testosterone is still available in the body is now tied to sex hormone binding globulin and is unavailable to the body. And there are ways to naturally free this testosterone, and this is what's not being treated in primary care or allopathic medical models. So there's a formula that I created called Ultimate Male Energy. And the formula contains these various ingredients here: chrysin, nettle root, indole 3-carbinol, broccoli extract, turmeric, holy basil, quercetin, citrus bioflavonoids, and bioperine. Now, the reason we put chrysin and nettle root extract in the formula, and you can see here it says water extracted. First of all, chrysin is a natural bioflavonoid, but at the same time, it's one of the most powerful aromatase inhibiting agents that's ever been discovered. The problem with chrysin is it's not absorbed in the human body very effectively unless you accompany it with a nutrient maximizing agent called bioperine. So you'll see we put bioperine in almost every single one of our formulas. We're one of the only companies in Canada that does that. It is a little more expensive than this ingredient, but I would rather the ingredient be in the formulas because people are paying good money for any of these nutritional formulas, and you want to make sure they're actually getting in the body and they're doing the job that they're designed to do in the first place. So chrysin in studies with bioperine has been shown to raise free testosterone by close to 50% and lower estrogens, which we're going to talk about in a second, by close to 50%. So that's absolutely incredible. This is natural. Nettle root is important, and it has to be a water extracted form, not the leaf as you can see, which is good for inflammation, but the root. What the root has been shown to do is the phytonutrients bind to the same receptors that free testosterone binds to on sex hormone binding globulin. What that means is it's almost like going onto a bus and there's someone sitting in the seat and a bouncer comes, takes the person, moves them away, and allows you to sit down. That's exactly what it is with the free testosterone. It's taking the free testosterone, it's binding preferentially to the sex hormone binding globulin, this is the nettle root ligands, and allowing the free testosterone to be free and do the job it's designed to do. The indoles, indole 3-carbinol coming from broccoli extracts, is there to reduce the most problematic form of estrogen in the body that a man produces, which is called the 16-alpha hydroxyestrone. And the broccoli extracts are in there with sulforaphane, by the way, in order to allow the indoles to do their jobs that much more effectively. We put turmeric in the formula because it's very, very important for helping to control inflammation. If you have excess inflammation in this biochemical process, the body cannot do these other things we're talking about. And the same thing with excess blood sugar, which is why holy basil is in the formula, and quercetin and citrus bioflavonoids are in there as co-accessory nutrients to allow everything else to do their job that much more effectively. The benefits to this formula, and by the way, this is quickly, well, I shouldn't say quickly, this has taken 7 years to become the #1 selling male protective formula in the market. I don't call it male enhancement formula because, you know, that I think that's misinformation giving people, because not every man is going to experience greater erections by taking a formula like this, or more muscle tissue by taking a formula like this, but they will be protected more by taking a formula like this. And this is why even men who are presently on testosterone replacement therapy, even synthetic testosterone, can be aided by taking a formula like this, because it's going to protect the body from converting that testosterone into estrogen, which men do at such a degree that by retirement age, some men have higher levels of estrogen than some women. So this product helps to reduce the symptoms that are associated with andropause or beer belly blues, male menopause, viropause, whatever you want to call it, male aging. It reduces excess body fat, especially in the abdominal region. It helps to facilitate the conversion of the powerful, the obesity and cancer-promoting estrogens, and moves them to a much safer variety called a 2-hydroxyestrone and a 2-methoxyestrogen. And by the way, the number one cause of prostate disease in men is not testosterone. As a matter of fact, testosterone has never been a problem in prostate disease. Estrogen is way more of a problem than the bad form of testosterone, which we'll talk about later on. The formula also protects the body's natural production of testosterone, preserves and helps build lean muscle tissue, enhances the body's cellular repair mechanisms, and also does help protect prostate cells, helps to reduce excess inflammation, and helps to control excess blood sugar levels. The key to healthier testosterone levels are, number one, you want to increase free testosterone, and in order to do that, you've got to free it from that sex hormone binding globulin, which I just shown you this formula helps with. Number two, you've got to increase the testosterone to estrogen ratio, because most men have higher estrogen than testosterone in their body, especially by retirement age. So the only way to do this naturally is by getting rid of the belly and also by inhibiting that aromatase activity, and this is a formula that helps to do that. And finally, you want to reduce the most harmful form of estrogen, which is the 16-alpha-hydroxyestrone. This is male energy. This is a product that can help your clients do all of those things, and we have the most incredible testimonials from this product. There is honestly not a lecture that goes by that I'm involved with that I do not hear a testimonial either from a woman because of a man in her life, whether it's her father, her uncle, her brother, her boyfriend, her husband, or a man saying, you know, unbelievable, this formula has changed my life. So, you know, aside from the science is always great. It looks good on paper, but I've worked with formulas that look absolutely fantastic on paper, and then in the real world, they don't always translate. This is a product that actually does both. So we're going to talk here a little bit about the prostate. Here's a little cartoon I'll just let sink in for a second, just a little humor before we continue. I hope some of you are laughing, probably just the women. And then the male reproductive system, just to show you, you know, where the prostate gland is, the urethra, which travels through the prostate gland enveloping around the urethra, which carries both urine and sperm from a man's body. What ends up happening is as the prostate gland starts to swell, we call this BPH, or benign prostatic hyperplasia. This can also be prostatitis, which is inflammation of the prostate. What we start to see on the right is the prostate gland closing in around the urethra, making a man feel that urinary urgency. He's got to go to the bathroom all the time. What a lot of people don't hear is that men that have prostate-specific problems usually also suffer from some form of sexual dysfunction. Whether it's erectile dysfunction, lost libido, whatever the problem is, it is directly related because the prostate is an integral part of that sexual, of the whole sexual function of a male. So when we look at the prostate is a walnut-sized gland, hole in the middle, located just below a man's bladder. The urethra, once again, the tube that carries urine and sperm from the body, descends from the bladder and passes through the prostate. As the hole in the prostate grows or becomes inflamed, it closes tighter around the urethra, and therefore it's cutting off the flow of urine and sperm. And it's this scenario that's responsible for the majority of prostate disorders. So when we look at prostate disease, the problem is by age 50, the majority of men suffer from one form or another of prostate disease. When I say one form or another, I'm saying that the prostate is already starting to swell. Some men will have, you know, full-blown prostate cancer. I believe the stats now are 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 men are going to experience prostate cancer within their lives. There's a lot of autopsies on younger men showing they've already started to develop prostate cancer. The interesting thing about this is prostate cancer happens to be one of the slowest growing cancers in the majority of men. Now, obviously, in some men, like my father, it wasn't. But with the majority of men, it is a very slow-growing cancer because the prostate tissue is such tough tissue. Some men will never, ever experience metastasis of their cancer, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to experience a lot of discomfort along the way. So this is experienced as prostatitis, the inflammation of the prostate, or benign prostatic hyperplasia, the overgrowth or enlargement of the prostate. And some of the signs are frequent need to urinate, inability to completely empty the bladder, a weak urine stream, difficulty stopping and starting urination, incontinence or loss of control, painful or bloody urination, and also erectile dysfunction. By age 85, over 90% of men develop prostate cancer. And according to myriad research, early prostate disorders eventually do develop into prostate cancer. And prostate cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death in men. So I wanted you to understand my take on the PSA. Not everybody agrees with me. There are a growing group of researchers that do. The PSA is a fairly good sign for cancer within the body. However, there are a lot of problems with it. So we call this prostate-specific antigen. The PSA is a protein that's produced by the prostate gland. It's the PSA test that men get measures the level of PSA in the blood. Both PSA and what we call free PSA are tested. The higher the PSA level, the more likely the presence of prostate cancer. Both Canada and the USA approved the use of the PSA test along with a digital rectal exam to help detect prostate cancer in men aged 50 and older. Healthy PSA levels are below 4, with free PSA above 25. And the reason for that is because free PSA is lower in people the majority of the time with prostate cancer. Unfortunately, the PSA test has one of the highest error rates of any medical test today, often misdiagnosing patients, which means those patients have to now go and get a biopsy, and that biopsy or numerous biopsies can now open them up to future cancers because now there's invasiveness inside the prostate gland, unfortunately. The Canadian Task Force on Periodic Health Examinations actually advise against routine PSA testing, mostly for that reason. So I created a formula called the Ultimate Prostate, and I know you probably are aware of a gazillion prostate formulas out there, so just bear with me. I'm not trying to bore you. I want to educate you as to why they're not all created equal. These are the ingredients within the formula: Vegapure phytosterols, nettle root extract, once again water extracted, flower pollen extract, Pygeum africanum, indole 3-carbinol again, broccoli extract again, lycomato tomato extract. This is 100% natural lycopene, not synthetic. Zinc, which is natural zinc from aminomin. Selenium from the form of selenomethionine, vitamin D3, rosemary leaf extract, and once again, as you can see, bioperine. Now, glancing at the formula, and you all being in the nutrition field, one of the first things that might come to you is you may say, well, I don't understand why you don't have saw palmetto, because every single prostate formula I look at in the market has saw palmetto. And you'd be right. Almost every single one of them, or probably every other one, but this one has it. So some health experts have actually written to me and said, oh, Brad, you made a big mistake. You forgot one of the most important ingredients in a prostate formula. Like, that's a huge oversight, especially for a researcher. And, you know, I get this a lot, and it's okay. It just rolls off my back, and I never create a formula to be popular. I always create a formula to actually work, and that means it takes a great amount of research to make sure I'm putting into a formula exactly what needs to be in a formula so it's going to have its best effect within the human body. The reason I did not put saw palmetto in this formula is because I could not find any activated saw palmetto in the entire industry throughout North America. Now, what that means is the active ingredient in saw palmetto is something called beta-sitosterol. As a matter of fact, if you go to Germany and you go and see a medical doctor in Germany as a man and you have a prostate condition, you will probably walk out with a prescription medication for saw palmetto. The difference is that the saw palmetto in Germany is actually standardized for beta-sitosterol because they actually show there's active beta-sitosterol in their formulas. Here, we do not have any activated beta-sitosterol. So if you look at any prostate-specific products in the market, they will say standardized to sterols and fatty acids, but they won't tell you which ones because they can't, because they're not in the formula. This is why the first ingredient in my formula is actual non-genetically modified beta-sitosterol at 300 milligrams, which has been used in the studies to treat BPH alone, never mind all the other ingredients in the formula. The nettle root is in the formula because it affects the prostate specifically in a very positive way. Same as the flower pollen, same as the pygium. The indole-3-carbinol and the broccoli extract are in this formula because 50% of the problem is not DHT. This is what we're led to believe, that dihydrotestosterone is the same as testosterone, and that's not true. The fact remains that when we have higher levels of DHT in the body, the prostate has more of an affinity for that DHT and for estrogen. We don't have enough testosterone to be able to latch on to those same receptors and take the place of where that DHT normally docks onto. So the problem is, because of the lack of testosterone, we start to accept more DHT, which creates more of a growth pattern along with estrogen. Estrogen is implicated in prostate enlargement and prostate cancer at least 50% of the time. So we're led to believe testosterone is the problem, but we now know that estrogen is just as much a problem as the problematic form of testosterone. Testosterone in its free state or its natural state does not do anything but help the prostate gland, and that is research now coming out of Harvard University. So all of the ingredients in this formula are put in for one primary reason. Number one, to block the problematic form of testosterone, which is DHT. We do that by blocking an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase, which converts testosterone into dihydrotestosterone. And we also block the problematic forms of estrogen. We're the only company in Canada to do that. And that's why the formula works so well in almost every single man that uses it, because we're affecting 100% of the problem the great majority of the time. So that's the point of differentiation. The ultimate prostate, the benefits, it blocks the enzyme, the 5-alpha reductase, which is responsible for making the bad form of testosterone. It blocks the conversion of growth-promoting and cancer-causing estrogens. It offers significant relief against BPH symptoms. It exhibits natural antibacterial action in the prostate, which inhibits prostate swelling. The ingredients have been documented in well-controlled studies to be just as effective as the #1 prescription medication for BPH. And just one of the ingredients has been shown to effectively suppress prostate tumor cells. Now, this is in a laboratory setting, but it's still to show how powerful some of these ingredients are. It also helps to lower the incidence and mortality of all forms of cancer, but especially prostate cancer. The three features to Ultimate Prostate are: it is the most complete prostate protection formula that's available on the market, and it has absolutely no side effects. Number two, it incorporates proven nutrients in their natural bioavailable forms. Don't forget, it also has bioperine to further enhance the activity of the ingredients, to protect against prostate disease by lowering both the harmful form of testosterone as well as the estrogens. And finally, it greatly reduces urinary frequency by improving urine flow and reducing the amount of urine remaining in the bladder after urination. So what I thought we would do is just tie in, before we get into libido, tie in prostate and sexual function, just so people really understand what that connection is all about. So once again, half of all men suffering from prostate disease also have erectile dysfunction and other sexual problems. This was a report from the European Urology Conference and also appeared in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 1998. During ejaculation, the prostate is responsible for both secreting as well as mixing alkaline fluids that are there to protect the sperm from the excess acid in the urine tract and also in the vagina. Since this important function is essential to male sexuality, any growth of the prostate gland would inhibit the function and ultimately create a loss of desire and the inability to achieve orgasm, but also an erection. So this is what ultimate libido looks like. It's one of the top-selling libido-enhancing formulas on the market. It's also taken by natural bodybuilders because it works in the same way. The product is designed to raise the healthy level of testosterone, which is called free testosterone. So this is a pretty funny comic that I pulled off the internet because this is really unfortunate, but this is what happens in our society. You know, doc, can you write me a prescription for some of that Viagra? And his wife is like, you know, please don't do it. We start to see that a lot because women are losing their sexual drive. As a matter of fact, twice as many women suffer from sexual dysfunction as men. And once again, when women raise their testosterone naturally, and ultimate libido, by the way, can be given to both men and women. It is not a product that is just designed for men. That's just the male energy, and that's just the ultimate prostate. But ultimate libido is actually great for both sexes. So when we look at the problem of sexual dysfunction, studies indicate that at least 52% of men between the ages of 40 and 70 suffer from some degree of sexual dysfunction, which is, once again, the inability to achieve and or keep healthy erections, but also the loss of desire or libido. Conditions that are associated with sexual dysfunction, especially the inability to achieve or maintain an erection, are actually very serious. They're also very life-altering because they really, really affect the psychology of a male. We laugh about these things, you know, people make jokes about them, but they're very serious. Sexual dysfunction is often linked to complex feelings of inadequacy in men, low confidence and or frustration, ultimately affecting almost every single facet of a man's life. Drugs such as Viagra only help achieve stronger erections, but they do nothing to help with desire, sensation, or stamina, and let's not forget all of the life-threatening effects that actually come with them. So this product, Ultimate Libido, was created, and here are some of the benefits of the ingredients. One, it helps to enhance bodily levels of free biologically active testosterone. It helps to enhance sensation, desire, and enjoyment. It helps to provide longer lasting erections. And by the way, do not worry about this if you're a female. That was a joke, by the way. It helps increase sex drive and stamina. It helps to enhance muscle mass and strength. It's great for athletes. As a matter of fact, the premier ingredient in the formula, which is called Tongat Ali or Uricoma longifolia, is used in China for some of the Olympic athletes, men and women, to increase ATP levels. It is virtually side effect free as long as it's not taken in excessive dosages or over extended periods without regular breaks. And the formula is best taken along with Ultimate Male Energy. By the way, we do have something for women which is called Ultimate Her Energy, and it just protects a woman's estrogen levels. The reason we suggest taking it with male energy for men is because whenever you raise free biologically active levels of testosterone, there is always a slight chance that some of that testosterone can still aromatize and can convert into estrogen. Now, this is the same for men that are on testosterone replacement therapy, where all of a sudden they'll get deposits around their nipples, or they'll get what we call gynecomastia, which is breast tissue. It's because the testosterone is aromatizing. It's converting into estrogen, and not enough men are being tested for high levels of estradiol. So the important thing is when you take it with Ultimate Male Energy, you're now protecting that free testosterone so it does not become estradiol in the body. The formula is certified Malaysian Tongkat Ali root extract. It's a 100-to-1 extract. This is per 3 capsules, 250 milligrams. That is a very, very strong dose, which you do not find in any of the other formulas. Epimedium, which is also, we call it horny goatweed, 250 milligrams. Damiana, 150 milligrams. Zinc, once again, in its natural form. Niacin, and there you find the bioperine once again. Now, to give you an example of how a natural bodybuilder would take a formula like this, or an athlete, someone who wants to retain or build muscle tissue, I'll give you an example of myself. What I do is I go on cycles of my ultimate libido, so I don't stay on it all the time. But what I'll do, and I'm on a cycle of it right now because I am a natural bodybuilder, what I'll do is I stay on my ultimate male energy around the clock. I take 4 of those a day, 2 in the morning, 2 at night. When I go on, I call this a stack, or when I go on this new routine, which I'm on, I'll take 3 ultimate male energy in the morning, 3 ultimate male energy at night. I'll do this for 2 months. I take 3 ultimate libido in the morning, and 3 is the recommended dosage, so a lot of people could do really well just by taking 3. Women need less than men, so women can take anywhere from 1 to 3. I usually see women getting results at about the 2 mark. So 2 capsules a day, most women receive very, very beneficial results. But I take the 3 in the morning, 3 at night, and I'll also take 3 of the Ultimate Prostate, and I find that's a very good way for me to put on natural muscle and also increase my strength, obviously without having to go on any drugs. This is a very natural way to do it. The main active in Ultimate Libido is Tongeret. It grows wild in the rainforests of Southeast Asia. Pure-aged Malaysian Tongeret, this is where the research is known for its energy tonic and sexual health properties. Ultimate Libido uses only wild-crafted but also sterilized, certified Malaysian Tongeret root, and it is standardized to a guaranteed 100-to-1 potency. The pure-aged Tongeret is believed to be one of the most powerful natural herbal aphrodisiacs that's ever been discovered. The Tongeret used in the Ultimate Libido is aged for a minimum of 7 years because that's what's believed to enhance its overall effectiveness and its actives. These are the alkaloids and the glycosides. And due to this herb's powerful testosterone-enhancing ability, we recommend starting off with 1 capsule and working up in dosage form from there. Men can take higher dosages. There's not really a problem with that, but it's okay to start with 1 and then over about a week work up to the 3. You can take them all at once, or you can spread them out during the day. And the beautiful thing about all of these products, the 3 that I spoke about, they can be taken on an empty stomach, or they can be taken with food because they have the nutrient maximizing agent. It's also recommended to take frequent breaks from the formula. Once again, you can take it 5 days on, 2 days off, 2 months on, take a couple of weeks off. Just take breaks so the formula keeps working as effectively as we know it does in the majority of people. The 3 top selling features are: it is one of the most powerful natural libido-enhancing formulas that's available in the market. It works to stimulate testosterone production, and this is free testosterone, by the way, thereby helping to initiate sexual desire. This is in both men and women. And it works to stimulate sexual stamina, sensation in men, erectile function, but also orgasms, mood, and motivation. And that concludes my my training, my presentation for you this evening. So I wanted to leave enough time if anybody had any questions. Hopefully I can provide the answers for them. So thank you very much for listening for this past hour.
Well, thank you very much, Brad. That was very informative. If people want to type into the chat any questions they might have, then Brad can answer them. There's a bit of a delay between what we say and what they hear, so while we're waiting, Brad, I'm very interested in the fact that you put the bioperine in all of your formulas. If people aren't aware of this, that's black pepper, essentially. And
yeah, it's the fruit of the black pepper, yes.
About how they've been testing this bioperine in absorbing all kinds of things, including better absorption of drugs. We know about it for the curcumin, but I was starting to think, and I think you can maybe confirm this or not, that perhaps I'm assuming it aids the absorption of all nutrients.
It does, yeah. It's actually even been tested with drugs, and it actually affects the absorption and the utilization of drugs as well. And this is why any of my products, we recommend not taking at the same time as a pharmaceutical. You can take almost every one of my products, depending, obviously. I have some natural stimulating products for metabolism. You wouldn't take something like that if you have heart problems and you're on anti-anxiety medication. But the majority of the products you can take, even if you're on pharmaceuticals, you just need to take it about an hour away, because what BioPerine does is it works as a thermogenic aid on the gastrointestinal system. So what that means is there's a very short window of opportunity. It's almost like having a meal with cayenne pepper, where, if you take the cayenne pepper an hour after you have the meal, it's not going to have the same metabolic effects on helping you digest that food as if you took it at the same time. BioPerine has to be in the stomach at the same time of whatever nutrients you have with it, and that's why it's in the formulas, and that's why they can be taken on an empty stomach or with food. They work, our products work so well that we do not advertise very much with our product line. This is really sold primarily word of mouth. A lot of the big companies, they basically take out $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 ads. They have multi-million-dollar budgets so that people don't need to do their work anymore. People just look at an ad, just like we do on television when we see a drug, and we go into the doctor and we ask for that drug. Well, that's exactly what's happening in our health food stores, in our grocery stores, our pharmacies. People are walking in and going, wow, I saw that ad and this thing looks amazing. With enough money, you can tell anybody anything and make them believe it. But with our product line has to work because we're exclusive to where the education is, and that is in the health industry and with the health professionals. So we choose not to go into mass market because, to me, it's more important to get your questions answered at that level.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad to hear about that.
Okay, so I'm looking at, do you want me to just take these as they're coming in?
I'll read them because for the reason we can't see the chat. So Jody's asking, how would you wean someone off testosterone replacement therapy and move them onto natural testosterone boosters? How would you work with a physician to do this?
That's an absolutely amazing, amazing question, and it's a very hard one to answer, and I'll tell you why. It's hard because a lot of physicians are very closed to this type of thing because they don't believe any of these natural products will work the same way as as a synthetic or a bioidentical hormone will. And don't forget, a lot of men are not on bioidentical hormones, just like a lot of women aren't. They're taking synthetic versions. And it's not even that the synthetic versions are bad, because in certain cases they actually do work much better than the bioidentical ones. And some men need, there are cases where they need them to get that testosterone level up if it's been excessively low for a long period of time. I find the natural approach works sometimes much better than the bioidentical route, because a lot of the bioidentical creams aren't really well absorbed. The gels and the creams, there's some problems with them where they're not well absorbed, and it takes a long time to find out how to get them into your system or the proper way to administer them in what areas of the body. But with natural approaches, you're stimulating your natural production of testosterone. And to wean someone off, if you were to work with a physician, is, it really depends on the dosage that person has been on. It depends on the amount of time that person has been on that, that treatment. But what I would do is basically, the physician should know how to wean them off with the amount that they're giving them, usually by probably 50 to 100 milligrams a month. This would take, this would be done over a 2 to 3 month period, and then slowly introduce the natural products at the same time to start to stimulate the natural production again. Because if a man has been on testosterone replacement therapy for a long enough period of time, his system is shut down. His system is no longer producing testosterone, so it needs a good jolt. It needs a good, jump start, and this is why sometimes they give men HCG or some of these other drugs to stimulate the Leydig cells to start producing more testosterone again. So there's ways to do it. I would really recommend getting my book, Ultimate Male Solutions, because I have actual protocols in there how to follow that, and that probably would be one of the best ways to do it. Because it's not just supplements, don't forget, it's multifactorial. You're also talking about lifestyle. You're also, diet is exceptionally important when you talk about testosterone, because if someone is on an exceptionally low-fat diet, they're going to have a very, very hard time producing testosterone. We see this in a lot of vegans where they don't have enough saturated fats, they don't have enough cholesterol, and what ends up happening is they do not produce enough testosterone. Many of them have very, very low sex drive. So it's very important to introduce the right kinds of fats into the diets again, because this is what these hormones are made of, and get rid of the excess stress.
Good. Okay, so we have, this is two questions. This one's simple to answer. Is your multi for both men and women?
Yeah, absolutely. All of my products, every single one of my products other than Ultimate Male Energy and Ultimate Prostate are for both sexes. Every one of them. There's only 2 products in my line that are for men. And there's one specifically for women, which is Her Energy.
Okay, and then Sheena's asking that her husband likes to use epinephrine and caffeine. Oh, no. Well, it says epinephrine. And caffeine as a stack for weight loss and energy. Could your supplements replace or enhance the stack?
Yeah, here's the problem. It's ephedrine she's talking about. And ephedrine stimulates epinephrine, because epinephrine is a natural hormone. Here's the thing. Absolutely. I've got 2 phenomenal products which are going to work much better than ephedrine and caffeine, because the body builds up a tolerance to too much caffeine and too much ephedrine. And if you don't believe me, just think back to the first time you had your first cup of coffee and how good you felt, and then now that 1 cup of coffee or whatever you had at that time doesn't work the same way. What ends up happening is when you stimulate the adrenal system, and that's what you're doing with these alkaloids, or xanthine alkaloids, when you stimulate the adrenal system, you're stimulating norepinephrine, brain adrenaline. And what norepinephrine does is it stimulates, it latches on to the fat cells of the body, and it releases the fatty acids into the body. That doesn't guarantee they're going to be used as energy, but it allows them to break down. What we found, we have a product called Ultimate Calorie Burn with only 2 ingredients and 100% natural caffeine, which is in the form of theobromine. It's actually found in cocoa extract. So we put a very, very high-grade cocoa extract with absolutely no fat, no calories, no sugar. It is just all of the beneficial phytonutrients found in chocolate. It's patented. It's human research. It's called chocamine. And we put 1,000 milligrams of that. So it's actually used as a focus enhancer. It was originally created for students, believe it or not. Then we put a form of cayenne pepper, and I know you all know about cayenne, but most cayenne that you can buy in Canada right now is 40,000 heat units. Now, that's nothing. You can take that, you can pop it like candy all day, you'll never have a problem. They used to sell 100,000 heat units of cayenne pepper, and I still take that. When you take that, if it breaks down too quickly in your stomach, you feel like you're having a heart attack. It's absolutely horrible. Now, what we put in the Capsimax in this Ultimate Calorie Burn is 350,000 heat units. So I just told you only 40,000 is allowed in Canada. 100,000 they don't even sell because people have problems. How do I put 350,000, and who the heck's going to take that if they're going to get those kind of problems? The beautiful part about Capsimax is it's patented not to break down in your gut. It actually transfers to the small intestine and then releases its capsaicinoids, where it speeds up metabolism to the point of allowing the body to burn up to 300 extra calories. So that's just by taking 2 capsules of the Ultimate Calorie Burn, and the body doesn't build up a tolerance to it, meaning you never have to take higher levels. The problem with the caffeine and the ephedrine is the receptors are going to start shutting down after a certain period of time. The body will not keep releasing that fat. So that's going to become a problem. So I would definitely tell your husband to lower those dosages and eventually go off of that stack and take something a little more natural like Ultimate Calorie Burn. We also have a product called Ultimate Lean Energy that is 100% natural as well.
Okay, the next question is a follow-up from Jody regarding her first question. How often would you recommend testing for testosterone levels during the process of switching over from synthetic testosterone to natural therapies?
You know, with testosterone, I would do it once every month to 2 months, getting tested. But, you know, understand that unless your doctor writes on, when you go for a blood test, you know, a lot of that blood test is already paid for, unless, but the clinics will not test for free testosterone. They're going to charge you for free testosterone. So you have to converse with your doctor and ask them to put that on the test. Please test for free testosterone, because a lot of doctors do not understand the importance of free testosterone.
Okay. The next question is, would you wean a client off their prostate medication while introducing Ultimate Prostate? Would you add male energy to this mix?
Great question. In order to protect yourself, you cannot wean anybody off of any medication, okay? Because you're opening yourself up to a libel suit. You don't want to go there. What you would do is you would always suggest that they do their homework, and most people should never even be on these prostate medications to begin with, because there's so many side effects that occur with that. So in a perfect world with a physician, if these people are on prostate medication, absolutely they would wean off with their doctor's permission and go on the Ultimate Prostate Control, prostate support with the Ultimate Male Energy, and they would have a much better reaction the great majority of the time. Excellent.
All right, so it looks like, I don't know if anyone has any other questions, if you could type them in the chat. While we're waiting to see other questions, I have, for those of you who've done our webinars before, you know that in order for these to count for practicum hours with the school, or, oops, there's a big long question, or to get CEU credits, you have to complete the quiz. I will send out the quiz tomorrow. There's 3 questions that you would have to be able to answer only by listening to Brad. So I just wanted to let you know that the quiz will go out. All right, so this next question is from Jody again. Are you in practice currently, and do you work with clients one-on-one? How and where can you be contacted? This may be too open-ended, but can you briefly walk us through a client example? And of course, you need far more medical history if there were an actual client. Say someone with erectile dysfunction, low libido, enlarged testosterone, low energy, and borderline diabetes. What would be the first priority? Can you walk us through one possible path of treatment, understanding it won't be the same for every client?
Yeah, that's a that would take a very long time to answer. I'm not trying to avoid it, Jody. I'm not in practice anymore because I write full-time, I lecture full-time, I formulate full-time, and I teach full-time. So, but if you want, if you want to contact me directly, I do receive well over 100 emails a day, so just all I ask is that you bear with me. The best place right now is to contact me on Facebook at Brad King Health. And please like that page. I post every single day, and that's where I have the majority of the interaction. And to take a client through these things, number one, I would do a questionnaire. And if you go into my Ultimate Male Solution website, ultimatemale-solution.com, there's actually a questionnaire on there right away that people can fill out that shows them if they have the signs of low testosterone or not. Because the majority of men, the reason why they're not being diagnosed with andropause by their doctors, because there's a laboratory reference range that is age adjusted to anticipate the lower than normal level as you get older. So most doctors do not look at the actual clinical signs. It's no different than thyroid disorders, where women go and they say, oh geez, I'm cold all the time and my nails are brittle and my skin's not right and I'm depressed and my cholesterol's through the roof, and they test them for TSH and it comes back at a 3 or a 3.5, and they say, oh, you're normal, everything's fine. Whereas the research shows that anything below 1.9, you have a problem, but a lot of doctors aren't aware of that. Same thing with the testosterone. If a man comes in, no sex drive, can't get an erection, is depressed, not happy, grumpy all the time, big belly, I mean, right there, that man probably suffers from low levels of testosterone. High cholesterol, the list goes on and on. That's where I would talk to the man about going on these products. The 3 products in particular that I spoke about, the male energy, the ultimate libido, these are natural, so the man is either going to notice something really fast, or if that's not the problem, he's not really going to notice that much. But you'll know fairly quickly. You'll know after at least a month if that man is feeling better or not, and he usually is. And then I would talk to him about diet, and I would explain to him, get him, and I'm sure you already do this, to get him to fill out a questionnaire or a 3-day meal sample. This is what I used to do with my clients, where I would say, carry a pen, carry a piece of paper, or I would print out a form where it would have 6 time slots on it, just in case, and I would say to them, for 3 days, from the time you wake up in the morning, and do not do anything out of the ordinary, because this is only going to hamper your results. So from the time you wake up in the morning, take that pen. I don't care whether you have a coffee, a shot of espresso, some liquor, or water. You write down the time you had it. You write down exactly what you had every single time you eat within those 3 days, and that's what you assess, because that's going to be roughly a normal eating pattern for someone. And that's the only way you're going to be able to dissect what they're doing wrong and then add in what they should be doing right. So those are just some of the things that I would recommend.
So she's just asking to clarify, so start them on a full dose of all 3 products?
Yeah, when I say a full dose, I would do 3 of the prostate, 4 of the male energy, and 3 of the ultimate libido. And I would do that for a month. And yes, most men will say, wow, I just feel that much better for this.
Okay, oh wait, sorry, got another question here. What are your thoughts on lactic acid, lactate, and its effects as a fuel on testosterone?
Yeah, no, there's definitely some good research on excess lactic acid buildup, which is why I'm a big believer in very, very high impact, short duration activity for exercise. The higher the lactate threshold, it is believed the more stimulation of not just testosterone, also of human growth hormone. So in my new book, Dirty Diets, I have an entire chapter on this. And by the way, if you go into dirtydiets.com, any of you can order the book. You can also get it I have a 20% discount just in case anyone's interested. And you can also order it in an ebook format as well and get it instantly. But absolutely anything that stimulates more lactic acid production is actually very good for any of the metabolic hormones. Once again, testosterone and human growth hormone, which really work in concert.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any other questions? So again, it takes them a couple of minutes to hear that. There's just this delay on this system.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm finding this very fascinating, and I'm going to send the replay to my brother so he can hear all this.
And once again, I do apologize. This is me very low energy because I just got back from my 2-week tour, and I don't get sick too often, but I got very, very sick the last couple of days. So I'm this is me very down, not having as much energy as I normally have. So I do apologize.
You're doing fine. You're doing great. You would never know that you weren't up to full speed. Yeah, no, I just think this is a very important topic, and I don't find that men get talked about enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, we hear
Absolutely.
so much about the women's issues, but you know, here are men, 50% of the population, and it's just, especially in alternative circles.
The reason for that is because men still rely on women to a much greater degree than they should. And it's always been that way, and it probably will always be that way. It doesn't matter how many books I write or how many other experts out there talk about this. Men are men. Men are lazy the majority of the time, you know, and it just is the way it is. And this is why women are still the ones, they're the nurturers, they're the ones going into the stores, they're the ones asking the questions, they're the ones reading the books. I mean, I have more women that bought and read Beer Belly Blues and Ultimate Male Solution than probably by 5 to 1 than any single man. The majority of testimonials I have in that book are from women saying thank you because I was able to help my man. And this is what I hear over and over again. You know, men need to wake up and become a little more proactive. But it's, you know, it's that whole adage of women just, you know, almost fooling us like we're children and putting things in our food and giving us these pills to help us.
Yeah, no, they do that quite a bit. I hear that a lot. No, I think it's good then. I mean, the majority of people who will be seeing this and hearing this are women, so that's actually good then, because hopefully they'll understand the importance of passing on the information.
Yeah, and trust me, this is a massive, massive area of practice that very, very few people are actually glomming onto, because it's a very technical area, and that's why a lot of people, you know, they don't know that much about men's health, so they just go, oh, this is not good for me. But if, you know, you have, like, the world is your oyster when it comes to men's health. And because there are so many aging men and they don't have the answers, you know, here's a stat for you to show you how big this problem is. There was a Norwegian study showing that men that have waist sizes of 40 inches or more typically produce 30% less testosterone than men that have waist sizes of 37 inches or less. Now, the great majority of men over the age of 40 don't even know what a 37-inch waist looks like. So that just goes to show you, just by looking at the size of a belly, like most men that have big bellies, automatically you can presume they're producing less testosterone than they should.
That's a shame. That really is a shame.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jody's asked another question. She says, Angel has a product called Molclacin, and it's used for digestion and helps feed good bacteria to crowd out bad. And that's what the bacteria does, the lactic acid stuff, right? Is this the same lactic acid relationship that you were talking about?
No. This lactic acid is what allows the beneficial bacteria, the probiotics, to actually grow. What would work even better, and this is important for all of you in your practice, there's a product, and this isn't my product, this is a product that's out there that I use that I highly recommend. When I was talking about, at the very beginning, natural forms of nutrients, there's a product called Leaf Source that's available in the marketplace. It's only sold through, I believe, health food stores. It is a discovery, and this is just one of the things that it does that Jody's talking about. It feeds the beneficial bacteria. It has over 10 years of research, 7 years at one of the top pharmaceutical universities. And Leaf Source is in 100% organically bound mineral composite formula. It comes from humic and fulvic acid. It comes from one place on Earth that's been dated at close to 100 million years, and it has a nutrient compilation that researchers have never seen before. I've been using it for about 5 years. I give it to my pets. I recommend it to everybody. I actually think products like that should be the basis of nutrition, just like I do believe that protein formulas that are high in alpha-lactalbumin should be the basis, because people don't understand the importance of these things. But for what you're talking about, for feeding beneficial bacteria, there's nothing better than a product called Leaf Source. for inflammation, leaf source, for natural energy, leaf source. And also, one of the other things it does is it helps to enhance the absorption of nutrients that you take with it. So it works in a more natural way, but it works very much like a bioprene as well. To be honest, that would be in my products if the company allowed it to be sold like that, but it doesn't.
And are you saying leaf like a leaf on a tree?
Yeah, leaf source. So if you go into leafsource.com, there's a whole website about how incredible this product is.
Well, there we go. We get even more useful information.
There you go.
That's good to know. Okay, so I don't see any more questions. So I think we're at 9:26, so that's almost an hour and a half. That was very good. That was a fabulous presentation. I'm going to put the replay in our big mass email and send it out to people because I really think that they need to hear this. A lot of good information here. And I want to thank you, Brad, for doing this, even though you're a little under the weather. And I hope you feel better. And as I said, it was a good presentation, and I know we're going to get a lot of positive feedback from this. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and I hope to see a lot of the students on Facebook at Brad King Health, and just say hi even, or tell me what you thought of the training. I would appreciate it.
That's a really good idea. Okay, well, if that's the end of this, then I want to thank you, and I want to wish everyone a good night. And with that, we will end this broadcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.